So to finish off today, is Ryan Henderson from Open Fifth. It's hard to say that. Presenting from legacy to automation, transforming a brownfield into the future. Open Fifth is one of our Pounamu sponsors. Pounamu is this green stone that I'm wearing. It's probably one of the most precious stones in Aotearoa, which is why the people who gave us the most money get that. Open Fifth is a UK-based support company that has been doing excellent work implementing and supporting Koha for libraries across the UK and beyond. This presentation is about the real work of modernisation, taking existing systems, often with years of accumulated complexity. Oh my God, I hit scroll. There we go. Accumulated complexity and bringing them into the future. It's something many of you are probably grappling with in your own libraries. How do you move forward when you're starting from a legacy position? The term brownfield comes from development. It's about building on a site that's already been developed as opposed to starting fresh on a greenfield site. And that's the reality for most of us in libraries. We're always building on what came before. So, Ryan, take us home.
I would love to, but my laptop is deciding it doesn't want to.
Sometimes it puts it on different things, so it puts...
It's just the internet.
Internet.
So,
do you want me to hotspot you?
I'm already trying to hotspot.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah, if you can... Oh, wait.
Oh.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go. Yay!
Yay.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Exactly. It got scared of you. So, hello everyone. This is my first Kohacon, so I apologize if I stutter a little bit because, well, I'm in front of a lot of people and a lot of peers. So it's exciting, and I've loved listening to all of the different presentations this morning and this afternoon. So, as Chris mentioned, we have built upon a brownfield, and this is from legacy to automation. So, just for a little bit of background, as you can see, my manager, Stephen there, me and him back in 2022 joined Open Fifth, which was PTFS Europe at that moment in time, and we ultimately made up a three-person team with a member who has moved into dev called Jake Deary. This coincided with the retirement of senior technical staff, which did mean that quite a bit of knowledge of our systems did go at the same time, but it also brought in fresh ideas and eyes for the estate, including the automation ideas and modernization. So, why do you want to add automation to your estate? Well, there are quite a few different reasons. However, just to name a few, as you can see here, there's consistent deployments of server configurations, especially when it comes to recovery of data and also disaster recovery. What you can do is you can deploy from one data center. Let's say you had 50 servers there. That data center has gone down. You need to recover all of those servers as quickly as possible. Automation can allow it to happen within a day, probably. We have tested a little bit, and it's pretty quick. You've got common and tedious tasks can be automated. So one of the biggest tasks that we have been doing and have got automated now is cron jobs. We had moved from one style of cron jobs to a different style of cron jobs recently, and let's just say I had the unfortunate task of having to go through hundreds of servers changing the cron jobs myself to make sure everything was consistent with the new style. However, in the future, all of this can be just automated, and this bot is always consistent and will always make sure it is correct from now on, and you don't have different people's moment of the day, let's say, because let's be honest, you may forget something when you're deploying a server or deploying cron jobs, and well, you know what happens then. You'll leave that out, and you'll come down to it after like 2 months and realize you've missed it. Whereas the bot will make sure that it's always there. So tasks are now run more efficiently and are generally faster. As I said, the bot can go to all your servers within probably an hour or two to deploy all of these different tasks and get it all working as quickly as possible. Whereas a human, and I know this from experience, it takes probably closer to a month because you're pulled off to other different things at the same time, because you can't just drop everything and just work on going through all your servers, unfortunately. And then, as I just said, automation bots don't get distracted, and they're not forgetful either. They will always do what you want them to do. So it's always a guaranteed thing. So, the driving force from the cats to the cattle. So this was going to be a long-term project of ours. We really wanted it to be a long-term project because it is quite complex. However, one of our suppliers at the time wanted to sunset their public cloud platform and move us onto a different platform, which was arguably a lot worse. And we had some servers over there already, and their performance weren't as good. And then, honestly, their support had degraded over the years, especially when me and Stephen joined. We didn't have very good support from them, which was really disappointing because this company I had previous experience with from my job before PTFS Europe, and so did Stephen. And they were a really good company at one point. And it was just upsetting to see what happened. But this then meant we had over 80 servers that had been moved within less than 2 months, which is a daunting task. And let's just say we were pulling our hairs out over it. So this is how we felt. Yep. It was fine. We tried to say to everyone it was fine. But unsurprisingly, it didn't make anyone happy. So there were multiple other customers that were using the platform who made the feelings well known to the supplier, and they eventually walked back the decision. However, with that decision being made, we honestly were just like, okay, that's the last straw. We're not going to be with them anymore. So we had to start looking at other options. So why was this an actual problem? All the servers were like cats. So they require a lot of attention from you as an owner. They all have their own unique personalities. So you go to scratch one server behind the ear, it will purr, but the next one will bite you instead. That's the best way to describe it. But as I said earlier, what happened was before me and Stephen joined, the company had 3 technicians who all had their own way of setting up servers, which is completely fine when you have, 10 servers to 50 servers, something like that. Something that's really manageable by a 3-person team. But as you start to scale up, that just causes a load of issues. So some people may know, but back in the day, you could, and you still can, install Koha via Git. And that's 2 different ways of doing it. You can do the standard install or the dev install. So we had both on loads of different servers. And we also had packages as well, which, well, that's not really nice, especially for a new member of staff who hadn't used Koha before. Just seeing all these different configurations kind of made my head turn, and I think it made Stephen's head turn as well. And Jake had to pull his hair out a little bit, trying to drag us along and teach us how to do all the upgrades for all these different configurations. And we really thank Jake for that. But what was the solution? Oh, wait, first of all, here's a picture of all the servers. Nice room of cats. So, what is the solution? Well, we need to go from keeping pets, like the cats, to being a farmer who farms cattle instead. That does mean it's generally more boring, as many people will know, but it does mean that all the servers will be standardized and, in short, predictable. So, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your own outlooks, we were forced and speeding our way into this faster than we wanted to. And there's a picture of the ideal state. A bunch of cows. So, the initial challenges and what they present. Oh, hello. Oopsies, my bad. There we go. So, in short, there were a lot of different challenges, and honestly, I'm still having nightmares over some of these. But we had to go through all of our servers, categorizing each of them. What service had what customization? What service had Git installs, which ones were standard, which one were dev, which one were packages. And then on top of that, the crons were absolutely everywhere. Some were in Koha users, some were in the Koha shell, some were in etc Koha with Koha common, which is installed by your packages, or some were just in the root cron job, just sitting there. So all of these different things, and then also custom scripts, which were everywhere as well. So we had to make sure we categorized everything into different silos, so we knew what we had to deal with. So the next one was the desired server configuration. We needed to determine where we wanted all this custom stuff to go, because the last thing we wanted to do was transfer everything as is to the new estate. So we had to work this out, and it did take us a lot of time, and honestly, we're still doing a lot of this at the moment, which I'm sure our lovely staff are still annoyed about a little bit, because sometimes they'll realize we've changed something and they haven't been given a little heads up, so I do apologize for that. But we needed to work this out. So we sat down quite a lot, and we finally worked out where we wanted everything to be. And then certain things came up, and we had to change some of those plans again. So that's why it took us time. Which brings us on to the next challenge, which is time. Which is honestly the longest and hardest thing about this entire process. All of our staff needed to learn how to use the chosen automation tool, because honestly, none of us really used it in a production environment. We had used it on our own personal estates, but personal compared to production are two completely different things. So we needed to make sure everything was done correctly. We had a battle against the perfectionist inside. Not letting perfect be the enemy of plenty good enough. This is mainly aimed at me from Stephen, because one of my worst traits is battling that perfectionist. Because what will happen is I would build a script, and then I'll figure out that there was actually a better way of doing it, and more efficient. However, it works. So do I waste more time going back and rebuilding it all, or do I just wait and come back to that another day? Which is what we ended up doing, because there was so much that we needed to do that being a perfectionist isn't the best thing in that circumstance. However, all those are written down in a nice board somewhere where we will eventually get to, which, again, with time permitted. And then deploying the automate service user onto all our servers manually, which was a long, complicated task, because we had hundreds of servers to go through, and 4 technicians, actually, because Jonathan did help us with this. But we had to go through all the different servers, making sure that they were all set up securely. Because if they weren't set up securely, well, we're not doing our job correctly. So, how do we do this? So, we initially consulted with hosting partners and migration specialists. These were some were actually, some of them were suggested to us by some of our hosting partners who had used them before. So we sat down and talked to them, but none of them got it. What they were trying to do was they were trying to tell us, oh, this is simple, we'll just move it in place. Or we'll do a migration like you do a WordPress migration. Koha is not WordPress. It can't do that, especially with the cats that we have. And if we were going to do this, we wanted to do it correctly and right. And set everything up into the modern era. So standard migrations would not guarantee of working either, which was simple R-syncing because of the way everything was set up. So, as Thanos once said, we decided to do it ourselves. And that is just Stephen trying to snap his fingers. So, what tool and why? The automation tool that we decided upon was Ansible. Why? Firstly, it was agentless. And that's a big one for us. In the past, well, we've known agents sometimes get vulnerabilities within them, and if they're not updated, it can lead to a large-scale vulnerability and attack platform for anyone to attack your servers. So we didn't want that. We wanted it to be completely agentless. It's a well-supported, documented, and understood in the industry. Honestly, it's probably industry standard at this point, especially in the DevOps area of things, and is a go-to tool for this type of work. And then, as I mentioned before, there was personal experience in personal projects, previous experience in personal projects with myself and Jake Deary. And then we had a close collaboration with another support company who had used Ansible as well. And honestly, we really thank Bywater for that, by the way, because they helped us setting everything up, especially with some of the scripts, and also gave us a lot of ideas on what we should be going for. So a brief overview of Ansible. Ansible is quite simple, but can be complicated quite quickly, as most technology is. Ansible works off of what is called playbooks, which is set up in the YAML format. YAML is short for yet another markup language, because there's too many markup languages, and whoever made this thought that was funny, I would assume. And then at a high level, it just runs your commands on different servers in this state. So it'll just go in and run commands on the CLI for you. So it does what a human will do, essentially. So what did we make to help us with Koha itself? First, we create server scripts. It started small. So what it would do is we would build a server from one of our hosting partners, and then we'll go into Ansible and we'll tell it to go and deploy Koha and deploy some of our security as well. That's how it started. But it quickly grew in scope. So now it goes and creates pretty much everything. I would say it does DNS now, it does SSLs, it does everything you would need. The only thing that me and the rest of my team do now is go into the hosting partner and just create the server, and we just set Ansible against it. And then we, after about 10 to 20 minutes, say to our customer support team or the projects team, the server's now built for you, which is absolutely incredible. What a great time saver. Migration scripts. So the migration scripts started with package-to-package migrations because those were quite honestly the most simple, because those could be just rsyncs, because everything would be in place when everything was transferred across. However, we then built upon that because of the migration we had to do. So we then moved into standard to package because we wanted to get away from Git on our servers. So that happened, and we then did dev to package, sorry. And the dev Git installs did cause a lot of issues, even with the migration scripts, because of just how unruly they were on our servers, I would say, with a couple of things being blindsiding myself and the rest of the team about where certain things were at that point. And the cream of the crop, which is the Koha upgrades scripts, which upgrades all the major versions. This we've actually deployed within this last year and have been testing it. And honestly, it is my favorite script of all time, because I wake up at 8 o'clock to start my day, and if there's an upgrade to do, I just go to the Ansible server and set it off, and I just go and do the rest of my day. Previously, if I had to upgrade Koha, I would be there for about 2 hours waiting for Koha to actually fully upgrade. Now it's done within like 10 minutes, and it's just one of the most incredible things we've ever done. at least that's me tooting my own horn because I built that script myself. So, what are we planning on next? Well, the first thing is fully scheduled upgrades. So from, I believe, the next year or the year after, we want to make it so there's tens of servers just being upgraded overnight. So that you don't need me being at 8 a.m. going in and starting these upgrades, which will just save a lot of time for a lot of our partners or customers, because their upgrades will happen overnight and they'll just come in the next morning and go, oh, I've got shiny new Koha. Inventory management with integration into our CRM. So one of my colleagues is working on this currently. But what this is going to do is it's going to mean that it'll scrape a lot of things from the Koha systems, like the DNS, like what site names are there, the version of Koha, major and minor, their customer code, all sorts of information, and put it into the CRM tool that we're using. Because at the moment, there's a lot of confusion when we're coming to know what version of Koha certain systems are using, because we don't have that displayed anywhere at the moment apart from the staff user interface, or if you log into the system, you can obviously check the app package. So we want to make sure that's all within our CRM tool so it's at-glanceable, especially for bug tickets. If something comes in and we know it's a bug in, let's say, a .06 release, and then it's fixed in .07, we can then just at a glance go, oh, they're definitely on 06. Okay, we'll just point upgrade them. And then the big one would be looking into container management and deployment. Infrastructure as code, container authorization, and other buzzwords that everyone likes to say. So that's Kubernetes, that kind of thing, because that is the next major thing for infrastructure in our opinions at the moment. But we haven't really looked at it yet, so I'm not going to talk too much about that, but that's there, and it's mainly for buzzwords. So that's how we moved to automation, and does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Have you called yourself Brian?
I've never thought of that one.
Sorry, what's the question?
So I think we should get the mic. Yeah, oh well. I'm not doing justice.
Hello. Have you nicknamed yourself Rye Ansible? He said, not yet.
Yeah, so, no, I never thought of that one. I do like the idea, and I think I may take it. That's going to be my new nickname, Andrew and Jonathan. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Are you happy now?
Am I happy? I could be happier, but honestly, OpenFifth is the best company I've ever worked for. Well, I've only worked for 2 companies, but they're definitely the best one. But I could see myself staying at OpenFifth for the rest of my life. Like, that's just how amazing the company is. So, that maybe a promotion there, Andrew? You had a question?
Does that cover automated testing perspectives as well, or do you then throw to automated testing solutions to stabilize the platform?
I think you can. I haven't looked into doing testing as of yet. At the moment, whenever I do upgrades and stuff like that, I do have some catches to make sure certain things are working. And if things aren't working, for example, a SIP restart, it will then error out and it will give us an error message within our Slack channel. So you can add certain things there, but in terms of full testing suites, I'm not sure. I would say yes, but as I said, I'm not 100% certain. Okay. Any other questions?
With all these headless changes, how the growth look like now? The illumination. Companies.
Yeah. In terms of OpenFifth as a name, incredible. I love it. It's one of the best changes we've made, in my opinion. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
I mean, you get some more customers on the sport or stay with the same number?
We've been gaining more customers. But I'm not going to be going into that too much because I'm not 100% certain at the moment. The finances are over there. He'll be able to answer your question better than me. Yep.
So yeah, where I work, we also have the concept of servers should be cattle, not pets.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, you've got, yes, you get like 80 odd servers, and Ansible is great and all that, but have you thought about moving to an orchestration platform, which is the next level up?
Yeah, there has been a couple of talks about that. I think we've looked at it a little bit, but then we got scared off. So it's not easy, and I think it's going to take a lot of learning, and we just didn't have time to do that. At the moment, Ansible, as you said, it's there, but it's not quite the best. So that's a next step that we're looking into, but I don't know when we're going to have time, to be perfectly honest. And any other questions? Yeah.
As a service company, one of the biggest headaches we have is to manage on-premise installation.
Yeah.
We are at a point where we say to customers we don't want, it's just on our infrastructure. Do you try to set up Ansible for on-premise customers? Or?
Yeah, so we don't have many on-premise customers, but we have, I think within the last month or two, we've had one that we have deployed Ansible onto, and honestly, it's been working pretty well with them. Because what we've said to them is we'll do full management on that, and we've asked them to make sure not to delete that user, because as soon as they delete that user, obviously Ansible won't work, and we'll be upset. The one issue we do have with that, from an infrastructure standpoint, is the networking, because we don't have access to that. But that customer understands, and their IT team are pretty on the ball. So we're able to communicate with them at any point and get anything through. So it should be fine. But yeah, I think Ansible does work just as long as you have open communications with the IT teams, I would say.
One more. Have you published, because you can make Ansible modules for, say, a couple installation module. Are they public?
The Ansible scripts at the moment aren't public. It's something we could look into. I'm not sure how much we want to show. I would leave that up to our management team to decide. But in my opinion, there's nothing there that's private information. So most of it we could make public.
Simply basic, like install and basic configuration options.
Yeah.
You can do on the Ansible Galaxy, for example.
Yeah, exactly. We could probably do that. I would just need to strip out a couple of things from our scripts, but yeah, we could probably do that. And then...
Sorry. Do you have one server has multiple core instances, or do you have a layer in between like LXC or Docker or whatever, or LXD or something?
So we've got a couple of different examples of that. We do have LXD on a couple of servers. So when it comes to that, I've set up Ansible to be able to go through the different SSH proxy ports that we have. So when Ansible goes to that inventory file, it'll see the port number it should go to. Obviously, there's a couple of issues with that. If you accidentally put the wrong port number in, it can cause issues. But what we've done is we've added etc keeper to the server. So if anyone does make that change by accident, we will have it and can revert it. And we have a inventory file of all the variables that user had. So in the worst case, we can restore that server to where it was. But it's something that we've been discussing quite recently. And we've got a couple of solutions like making the inventory file immutable to all users on the server. But at the moment, it's just the infrastructure team can access that, and that's it. But we're looking into potential solutions. Sorry. Does that answer? Yeah?
The only question making is how they do. I mean, Ansible is great because it does a lot of servers at
Yep.
the same time, which enables you to destroy.
Yes. Yeah, it does. That's why when it comes to Ansible, as I said, only our infrastructure team have the root password. So if a load of servers get destroyed overnight, we know it's down to 4 people because Jonathan has access. So we'd then and we've added in a lot of security into the servers to be able to see who is going into which host at which time. So.
But how do you test for regression? So do you just update on one server, see how it works, and then do the rest? Or?
So at the moment, what we do is we have a test inventory file. So it will run on a couple of test servers first, and we'll check that to make sure it has worked properly. If it has, we'll then put in a failure rate of 1 server into the playbook and run it on probably about 10 hosts. And if it's completely succeeded through all of those, then we'll up the failure rate to about 30% and then run it on the rest of the hosts.